Okay, pardon the little optical illusion there. That's how I say it. But in this video, I'm going to talk about these what I'm seeing more as a narcissist, overly dramatic cousin, but just as bad. And that's people who are another cluster B, like narcissists. People with narcissistic personality disorder. These are the histrionics, the histrionic personality disorder, and there's also antisocial personality disorder and borderline personality disorder in the cluster Bs and the DSM. Does that all make sense? But these are, my whole life, I have been around those with histrionic behaviors. Now, I'm not diagnosing anybody, and I don't know anybody who's actually been diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder. But these, I'm serious, they can be as bad as or worse than those who are narcissists. And I've seen a lot of people, make comments that they call them narcissists, but they're more of histrionic, their behaviors that they mention. Histrionic people are very loud. Not all of them do the same, so this is not going to be a one-size-fits-all, but I'll give a few things I've seen personally and another. And, someone who, with these behaviors, is that they're very loud. Okay, their hair, their whole look is loud. The way they laugh is very loud. It's more like a cackle. And they want to be seen. When they're younger, they wear something very provocative. They can continue to do that into their older ages. And they want to stand out. They want everybody to know. And if you step in there, you get in their way from them standing out, oh my goodness, that they can be so horrible, so cruel. Like, think adult mean girls. Okay, they're going to demand their ways, like, like they're throwing an adult temper tantrum. See, I used to always say, like an insolent child, or like that. But no, they're adults, and they are doing these temper tantrums like I've seen too many adults do myself. They want and demand their ways, and they'll even do the thing about like like their bottom lip pouts and quivers because they didn't get their way. And it can be stupid. It can be something like, that something is preventing them, like something natural is preventing them from doing what they want, and that as if somebody else can change it for them, or just do it anyway with them. Okay, but they're really adult mean girls. So many of them, and they don't have to be female, by the way. Okay, now they're also, like I said, they're overly dramatic cousins of narcissists. That's how I see it, because they're very theatrical. They're drama queens. They act like they're on stage, and if there's nothing going on, they'll create something, usually often a smear campaign against somebody behind their back, and they'll be very theatrical about it. Oh, like somebody, you say something to somebody on the phone, like, well, her hair looked a little different. Just something so simple. They'll take it to the, anybody they can get to witness, and they'll talk about it behind that person's, your back, and just make it so dramatic. Oh, you just wouldn't believe the way she put it, and they'll just make it very dramatical. And they don't care. If they're getting attention, that's all that they want. Whether it's negative attention or positive attention, they want that attention. And if, like I said, they don't all do this same thing. Another thing that they don't all do, but some do, is that they're very rebellious. And I'm not going to say like teenagers, but no, because they're adults who are acting very rebellious. Like if there's any kind of rule, a law, even some of them, a mandate, a social rule, like, things that people just don't do in front of somebody else, in public, especially like strangers. whatever it is, they're going to rebel against it. They're going to be rebellious, and they're going to do it anyway. You know, they kind of had that whole attitude. How did that expression go? Or that go? I'm old enough to know better, but I do it anyway. Something like that. That's kind of like their theme to their way of being. You know, they don't want to act their age. Okay, because they don't see themselves as being, you know, they're still young at heart, and you know, even on into their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, you see, it can keep going, doesn't stop. And like I said, none of this is that they all do it, but some of them do all of it. They actually do. Okay, now I'm going to give a hypothetical, fictional kind of story about a woman who is this way. Now, I'm not diagnosing her, you know, I don't diagnose, and even though this is a fictional character, I'm not going to diagnose, but, you know, people who diagnose and they are not somebody's counselor, even someone who is fictional. But, this woman, now she does volunteer, she's in her 50s, in her mid-50s, mid to upper 50s, and, she does these volunteer jobs. Now, with the county she lives in, Victorson County, let's go back to 2020. When they first heard everything early in 2020, they decided to lock down the county. Victorson County, Texas. Fictional. You know, Texas isn't fictional, of course. But they decided to lock down the county. And because of a lot of, not just that, but because of a lot of other troubles, like some people's lives were endangered. Because there's a sect of people that they just think that they can take over. Okay, and they can't. The people who actually run it is the elders of the county. And this is part of their culture. It's been back since it was founded. It was first settled. That the elders, and of course the age of when they considered them elders changed over time. But at this moment it's 70. And in early 2020, 70 years old and older. These are the elders. But then they had to split up because of what was going on, and they even included people who were 65. Okay, that's a whole separate story right there. But they pretty much run the show. Well, anything that they put out there, Donna feels like she's just above it all, and nobody can tell her what to do. She's a grown adult, and so on and so forth. Well, when she married into a family of people who own property there, her husband owned property there. When she married into him, she signed a contract that at any moment she could be asked to leave. Okay, very strange, but it's been part of their culture because they're very wealthy. The landowners can only be descendants from the original settlers and their families, and something called the original group members. They're the computer geeks that pretty much own a lot of the businesses. If not, they have to move to they can move out of the county, you know, totally. But usually what they do is move back to where they were originally from. It's a town called the Outlaws. It's an actual town called the Outlaws. A fictional town. Oh boy, a lot too much background in trying to tell a story sometimes, a simple story. But anyway, she basically, that's where Donna, her family, they grew up in the town called the Outlaws, and she just has that kind of attitude, that she's above it all. She's very histrionic, so is her sister Debbie. Very, you know, I'm higher and above all of you, when it's actually the opposite. People who live there, they're not, it depends on how you look at it, they're not. They are really the low life. Notice I did not say low class, but low life type, bottom feeders. You know, they break every rule, but of course it's not all of them, but yeah, that's what it's known for. It's a stereotype. They just break every rule and they don't care. And now let me get to this example. Whenever the elders first started hearing about all the troubles, they decide they're going to do something like these two mayors had mentioned. of basically called rolling lockdowns. It's a big, long story with it, but some of the people would be moved around. Again, this can be considered part of their culture because of all the ranches that are there and the businesses that are there. People who live in the county, they usually go about 2 weeks to whichever one, business or county, and they live in that area, and they work there for at least 2 weeks out of the year. It's part of their culture, like I said. And so it's not that uncommon. They usually do it with family members. Like one family member might live in this town, and the other one might live in another town, and they just switch homes, or something like that. It's not that big of a deal because they grew up in it. They know this is how it is. And when they become adults, they sign contracts knowing this is that, and the elders are the ones that usually run the county. Well, Donna doesn't think so. Donna's not from that part that has these. But she did sign a contract. And but Donna thinks that she can do whatever she wants, and they just can't stop her. And what she heard from her husband then was that they were going to have to do these rolling lockdowns, and they were going to have to move. Well, she was livid. I mean, she wasn't going to do that. But she had also, right after that, heard from the volunteers that they're going to be doing the same kind of thing, a very similar thing. And they would be moving the volunteers. They were going to make new places for volunteers, and their jobs were going to change from basically doing like care packages, but instead they were going to be there for the elderly people that don't live on any of the ranches. The elderly people, some of them will live on the ranches, and then talk to them every day. The people who live at home who are elders, see if they're okay and things like this. That's going to be their volunteer work mainly. And if they need deliveries or they need somebody to take them to somewhere, that's what they would do. Okay. But when she heard that she was actually going to have to physically move, she was livid. And she just thinks that, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to do it. You can tell them I'm not moving anywhere. This kind of attitude. Okay, but first she heard it from her husband, and then when she did, she came up with some crazy conspiracy theory. They're all out to get her and all this kind of stuff. And she had yet to hear, she hadn't yet heard that they were doing it with all the volunteers. That's two separate things. But she was going all crazy. Well, the thing about it was there was something else going on, which she was doing, she may have been a part of and doing wrong. So it was more that she was afraid she was going to get caught in the act, okay? But her husband didn't know about it. But her husband also, he knows from growing up there that he doesn't disclose all of the information about everything to her, especially where he gets money. He basically gets money off of dividends and things like this. But it's so much part of their culture, they just don't talk about it with one another. They don't tell anybody who isn't a descendant. Okay, they just don't. And anyway, then she, like I said, she got a call from the volunteer service. She got a call from the woman that she worked with, her daughter, Caitlin, about how they would need the volunteers to also go to different places and work there. And with it being locked down, they would be staying there for a period of time and then moving on. And then they would, work with the person if they're married, and the person they're married to also move. They work with them. And so, that they were going to learn how to use that system they were setting up. It's kind of like a, video conference calls. And that they would actually be able to see the elderly, the elderly person, and, make judgment. They weren't going to be trained healthcare professionals, but they would make judgment on maybe if they should report it or something, if the person looked ill or wasn't, able to concentrate on what they were talking about and so on. Okay, I'm saying that all along. I'm being distracted. It's funny. It really was, because right at that moment I said that. Yeah. Okay, still distractions. But you understand, it would be something like they're looking at them, and if they can't focus and there's no distractions going on around them or anything, or if they're slurring or whatever, that they would write it down, they would give it to somebody, then somebody would call somebody for him immediately, this kind of thing. And so they had the whole system worked out. Well, once she heard that everybody was going to be doing it, she kind of felt like, since the way she sees herself is she's so superior in what she does there anyway, when they're face to face before, what was going on in 2020, she just felt like she was the leader of the pack kind of thing. And this would give her, a lot of attention to be on, video conference calls. It wouldn't just be with elders. It would be with the whole group, and then she'd be able to be, get attention. That's what she wants. She loves the attention, and to act superior, and she would gossip with them, and tell them what it's all going on, and her version of it, which always would be very twisted. It wouldn't be the truth. It would be twisted somehow, the way she wanted to see it. And but anyway, so then she kind of chilled out about it, but she still wasn't happy, because she felt like she can do it from her own home. But they explained why it was, but it's a long story how they're going to divide it up, the county, for people to do lockdowns, and that they would have to move and all that. So, okay, anyway, but she saw herself, as the superior person, and what she, whatever they said, she would twist it, and included that, that they just needed her help, and that's why they were doing it this way. Okay, when they had said nothing of the sort. That instead, and what they were really doing was monitoring her, because they suspected her of, some kind of illegal activity, which they didn't know at the moment. And they never trusted her. When they got married, her husband, part of his culture that he grew up in, is that they had to go to the elders and check everything out. They originally from the same family line and all that, because a lot of people never moved out of the county, and a lot of families, and they go and do that, and they kind of, in a way, basically get permission to marry people. They don't want anybody marrying any family, even if it goes back all the way to many eons, that they have record from. They don't want anybody marrying that would be in any way family. But they also sign a contract, and she signs like a prenup contract. They separate them, and they tell them, look, you cannot tell them this, that, and the other. And they have to sign a contract saying that they don't. If they do tell them, then they could lose their property, their inheritance. And like I said, this is part of their culture, so they're not saying it as the elders are being, controlling, narcissistic, and all that, because that's one day where they may be. Okay, this is how it has been throughout all these generations. So part of the culture. Doesn't seem odd to them, like I said. But the ones who grew up in the town called the Outlaws, they don't really know all that. They're not told all that. That's what it is. They're just given a prenup, and some of them don't even bother reading it. So, okay, I know this is a bit of a story. It's so much background, just like I said earlier, it's just so much background to have to give for it to make it all sense, and then it doesn't, because it's like, okay, it's too much to think about. But really, Donna is one that she just breaks all the rules, as many rules as she can, and she knows, that gets her attention she wants. Negative attention, positive attention, doesn't matter, it's attention. She wants to be that center of attention, and if somebody says anything negative to her, her attitude is basically, oh, they're just, that type that hate people. They don't really, they're haters, they're trolls, whatever. That, they just don't recognize greatness or goodness or greatness whenever they see it. And that's her whole thing. She's never going to be at fault. She's never going to be wrong. And that runs in her family. Her sister Debbie's like that. And one of their cousins, Bess, she's like that. And it was just, now Bess and her family, they grew up in Cross County. But they're just as bad. They have bad, habits all around, like with their hygiene even. And things, like I said, they go against social rules. And they have, they do things in public, like rubbing their nose or coughing, just, turning their head and coughing. And instead of covering, it in any way, they'll do that. And it doesn't matter to them. Or stick their fingers in their ears and shake it. Seriously, I don't even like mention it. But it's gross. They have gross behaviors that is like, did the family never teach them? And these are cousins. And it's like that with all their cousins, their families. Okay, they just have these really rude behaviors. Now, of course, it's not all of them, but most of them, yeah. And they even have a cousin they call the gossip of the family. They just step over boundaries. They don't care. It's whatever like the gossip learns about other ones, she's going to spread it like wildfire. Well, wildfire. But she's not, they're taught this way in their families that they can do and be anything in any way, say, do whatever they want. No boundaries. They have an attitude that boundaries are for sissies. This kind of thing. They're taught wrong. Anyway, have you ever known anybody like that? They just break all the rules and they think that because they do, that they are the victors. I'm sorry, there's a pun there, Victorson County. Oh, I didn't even think about that really. But it's a little bit different there. But they believe that this is what helps them to get ahead in the world. This is what good, decent people do. They are anything but good, decent people. They're total opposites. But they believe that they are superior. They and their families are superior to all others. Like I said, not all of them in any of this. But anyway, have you known somebody like that? I have. I definitely have. Oh my goodness. But anyway, I'll use her as another example on another video. But if you want to watch more, just subscribe to this channel if you've made it this long, this far. The circular icon that pops up should pop up. You can just click on it and subscribe to this channel. The other ones, you can watch other videos. Anyway, I'll talk to you on another video.